How's it going? Welcome back to a very special and fantastical episode with the Savior. Yes, welcome to the Savior Show. And today we will be taking a look at Starfield in 2024, discuss it, look back at what it was last year, what it is now, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a different take, a little bit of a different perspective, okay? Because I actually enjoy Starfield. Yes, wow. I know, that's a crime. In this video, we will find out, is Starfield good now because of the recent updates, because of the modding scene, and because of what's coming with Starfield. I got it into my head that Starfield is a bad game because so many people online were saying Starfield was bad. You know, first it was very, very positive, and then it went middle, and now it's gone into the negative, I would say. But on release, loads of people loved it, but it changed over time, and the public perception of it changed over time. And I'll be honest with you, do you know what it is? It's mostly a goddamn grift, okay? People know that if you complain about something, it's gonna get more attention. That's why so many YouTubers, so many people just blindly hated Starfield, simply for clout or views. And then of course, when public opinions get twisted, more and more people are going to jump on the bandwagon. And I'm not saying that Starfield is actually a flawless gem and it's actually an amazing game, better than Cyberpunk 2077, better than Baldur's Gate 3. No, of course not. But it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. But that's simply the public perception. So it's very important to understand that, because I just recently picked it back up, played with the new updates installed, and I've got to say, I'm enjoying my time with it. When you finally get past the, it's a really difficult game to love, but when you finally get past that point of kind of fighting with it, fighting with the menus, fighting with the fast travel, fighting with the annoying mechanics in this game, when you get past that, it's actually a good game. And I know a lot of people will argue you shouldn't have to, fight with a game to enjoy it, but sometimes you do. In a big game like this, that's just the industry as it stands now. It's not tiny little games that are made to, just be played and then put down. Massive games are being made now, and that's not a good thing because it takes so much time, but you have to understand that the gaming industry has changed, so of course a massive game like this, it's not going to be for everyone, and this is supposed to be played for a very, very long time.
You may be wondering, just how big is this game? So we thought we'd take one last moment and show you. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome.
So, is Starfield good now? Okay, that is the question that we all want answered. Is Starfield worth playing in 2024, finally? I would say, yes it is, but I will preface that by saying only if you are a fan of Bethesda games, only if you are a fan of sci-fi, of this certain aesthetic, and understanding that Cyberpunk and Starfield are very different games. Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, very different games, okay? There are lots and lots of things to nitpick in Starfield, and a lot of them, righteously so, but I feel like the way this game was criticized is a bit unfair when you compare it to other games. No one's complaining that Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't have the best combat in the world. I'm not saying Starfield's combat is amazing, but you get my point. A lot of people were nitpicking Starfield like it was supposed to be the game to end all games. And of course that is down to marketing. Todd Howard is a sleazy little sleazeball, and he knows how to market a game, and not in a good way. He knows how to basically tell some soft little lies now and then.
We really do push the technology.
So if you are new to the channel, make sure that you do subscribe. It only takes you 2 seconds of your time. I would appreciate it so much. You have no idea how much it actually means to me right now, because I just left my job and I'm trying to do this YouTube thing full time, and for a channel my size, that is pretty insane to try and do, but that's what I'm doing because I'm insane. So please do consider supporting me by dropping a donation, dropping a thank you, that really does mean a lot, or checking out my Patreon that I just created. So many benefits that you can get there because I'm serious about giving something back to you guys as the community. Become a wise one, join the Patreon, and subscribe, and let's look at Starfield in 2024. And I'm not gonna regurgitate content here. I'm so sick of that discussion. Oh, Starfield is bad because loading screens. Oh, Starfield is bad because the menus are very slow and unorganized. And yes, that's true. I'm not gonna be a generic goddamn YouTuber. I mean, there's so many of them, just faceless What clouded my judgment was other people's perception around this game, and you should never let that happen if it's with your personal religious beliefs, your philosophical beliefs, your hobbies and interests. Never care what other people say. So what's actually changed with Starfield in 2024? Why do I think Starfield in 2024 is actually worth playing now? Well, that's mostly because of the new updates, okay? Now, you probably know about this if you are keeping on top of Starfield, but if not, what's been added, okay? We've got new maps, we've got gameplay tweaks and modifications, okay, built into the game. I'm not talking about mods here. Of course, the modding scene is doing its own thing. It's not as active as something like Skyrim, and I don't think it ever will be, but it's still doing some good quality work. But what I am going to be talking about is the modifiers in-game, okay, for Xbox, for consoles, and obviously on PC. This changed the game for me a lot, okay, because a lot of what you do in Starfield is going around talking to people and shooting people. That's pretty much it, to be honest, if you boil it down, like every game, but it's how you do those things in between that matters, okay? Now, the dialogue system feels much more immersive because now you're not zoomed into their goddamn dated faces.
You look like a...
No longer does it feel like you're talking to a stuffed piñata, like you're in some kind of horror taxidermy type situation when you're just confronted with the faces of the soulless NPCs. Now you can actually look around, you can look at the beautiful world around you and engage in conversation. It makes it feel much more organic and it passes the time better because the delivery sometimes is slow, but here it just makes you feel more immersed. So that's a big positive to me. But the biggest change for me was the fact that now you can change the combat, you can change the environmental settings, okay? Now, Starfield is actually a very different experience if you play it how it should have been played as an immersive planetary exploration type game, okay? And I'm going to talk about that more in a minute because a lot of the exploring planet stuff is just boring bullshit, okay? And a waste of time because it's all procedurally generated. But I'm going to talk about how you get past that and find the good stuff, okay? But what really just made me disappointed also to begin with was when I landed on a planet, it says, oh, you know, you're on a strange alien planet. You have no idea what the environment's going to be. You have no idea what these toxic elements are going on around you. And it doesn't really do anything. It just gives you a little blip on your HUD. But now you can change that and you can actually customize the weather and the environmental effects. So now when you're in a frozen wasteland of a planet, it actually gives you frostbite. It actually gives you all of these different, like, disorders. That's great. I love having disorders. Because I'm a Gen Z TikToker and I self-diagnose on TikTok. No, but it's so cool now. Because now when you're in a frozen wasteland, it actually reacts to that. You get frostbite. And if you don't treat that frostbite, it's going to get worse. Your health's gonna, you know, get worse and worse and worse until you die or freeze to death. The same thing with radiation or, you know, electrical storms and all this kind of crazy stuff. Now, when you're on an alien planet, it feels hostile. It feels like you are actually exploring, which is what it should have felt like to begin with. So that's a big thing for me, okay, is you can tweak that as much as you want, and you can tweak how much damage it actually gives you and the, like, prognosis and the stage of, like, different effects and how they can be treated. If you can be treated by just resting in a, you know, closed off area with breathable air, or if you actually have to rest and sleep to get back that health points and stuff like that, or your oxygen levels and stuff like that. And then, of course, we have the combat. The combat was terrible on release, I've got to be honest. The NPCs, the enemies, the AI is terrible. They are still pretty shit. They haven't really improved that much. But how you engage in combat has, okay? Because now you can tweak it. At least this is how I do it. You tweak it to max, and you tweak your damage output to max as well. And then what happens is you're actually now in a realistic gunfight. It only takes 1 or 2 shots, and either one of you can be dead. And then when you find an alien creature, they're actually dangerous, and you have to think about, oh, do I need to get high ground? You can't just spam medkits anymore because they're now on a slow burn if you choose that setting. And they may sound small, but actually, because this is what you engage with most of the time, it adds a big deal. A lot of the problems I had was picking up shit and then having to go into the terrible menus to, you know, sort through my stuff. Well, now you don't have to worry about that because you can set your weight limit to max and you never have to worry about picking up shit, you know, and going, you know, like hours and hours without even going into your inventory to manage bullshit, okay? So there's a lot here that's changed thanks to these customizable settings. Also, now you can play with a massive FOV, and that's a big deal, especially for console players. And you can customize that, third person and first person, your ship, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just so much better. They've changed it so you can actually tweak the in-game graphical settings as well, 60 FPS, lots of things that have improved with Starfield. 3D maps, now you don't get lost all the goddamn time. So it's all become much more streamlined and much more focused on gameplay elements that make it fun if you tweak it how you want to play the game. If you just want it to be a casual, take no damage, and you know, have no effects from weather or anything like that, and just explore the planet, you can do that. So let's continue with my Starfield analysis and this Starfield 2024 review, looking at what's changed. So I've touched on the gameplay updates and how that actually affects it, not just talking about, oh, it's been updated, giving you real examples of how to make the game better. If you want to give it another try, or for people who are enjoying it, I've discussed the situation around Starfield and why it's so difficult to talk about. Now, let's discuss another thing about Starfield and why this is not a game for everyone. Even though it has so many different elements going on, and a lot of them are half-baked, like the settlement system, you know, building outposts, stuff like that. Oh, that's another thing. Now you can actually customize your goddamn ship even more. And the ship customization in this game, mwah, mwah. As someone like me who enjoys painting Dark Souls figures, and yes, my wife does surprisingly still love me. I know, it's very, very shocking. Now it's even better. I love the building in Starfield, the ship building, I mean. I spent way too long customizing my ship, but it's so good. I have to give them props. The way everything just, you know, connects to each other, the way you can really customize it, and now you can customize inside the ship, is just so good, okay? But I have to say, the reason why a lot of people didn't like Starfield, lots of people with Starfield were expecting adrenaline, constant adrenaline. Exploring, like other Bethesda games, you're going to find something along routes, and there's always going to be something to do. If you understand that Starfield is a different experience and understand that this was by design, you can actually enjoy it a lot more, okay? Because Starfield is actually a slow-paced game. It's actually supposed to be a kind of Zen-like experience. And I've got to say, when I land on a planet, and I don't land on procedural, you know, generated planets anymore that don't have anything, just random generated content, I only land on planets that have built-in, you know, settlements, or there's a quest there, okay? And I'll talk about that more later. But when you land on a planet and you soak up the atmosphere, that's what Starfield does best, okay? I think that this game is so wonderfully detailed. I really like the aesthetic of it being kind of an optimistic kind of Star Trek inspired future where not everything is bleak. It doesn't always have to be bleak sci-fi. Yes, the tone can be rather boring at times and the writing is a little bit tedious, but there are nuggets of good characters and good writing out there, good questing and stuff like that. But it's the ambience, it's the detail of all of the different things that make this world feel realized that I really appreciate and I've come to appreciate. You know, when you stand on a desolate planet, I think Todd was out of his mind saying, you know, it wasn't boring for the real astronauts exploring, you know, desolate planets. Of course, that's insane to say because this is a video game. You can't just expect players to soak up and love the atmosphere of procedurally generated worlds, but I do get his point. You know, it is about experiencing that isolation, experiencing, you know, the ambience that Bethesda does so well. And I think they did nail that with Starfield. They did capture that magic. But now I'm going to give you a few tips on how to actually make Starfield a good experience. If you were like me, you gave it a try, but you didn't quite click with it, okay, how to get past that and how to actually enjoy Starfield. So the first thing I'll say is do not engage with the random generated bullshit anymore. When you land on a desolate planet, if it doesn't have a quest there, it doesn't actually have a handmade built location like, you know, some of the towns and cities that Bethesda made that are actually hidden and off the beaten path that you can actually find if you look for them. That was a surprise to me. Don't land on planets that have nothing on them, okay? Even if they say they have a location, you know it's all going to be the same random generated it's all going to be the same randomly generated shit. And I've got to be honest, I never engaged with that to begin with, but I did towards the end to see, you know, what is this all about, and it's very, very disappointing because it is just the same reused assets, the same reused ideas. So I highly recommend that you skip over that side of things. Also, if something isn't clicking with you, if a faction quest isn't clicking with you, there's no reason to continue it, okay? The main story, the Constellation storyline, never clicked with me, and I got so fed up with exploring with these annoying NPCs, these goody two-shoes, you know, the campaign and just the writing with the main NPCs, your companions, they're all so squeaky clean, and it's rather disgusting, to be honest. I'm having so much more fun now just exploring with me and Vasco, the robot, and not having whining, constant dialogue in my ear, actually enjoying the desolation of space. So, like I said, don't force yourself down a route if you don't enjoy it, okay? Play and customize the gameplay to how you want it with the new customization and modifiers in-game. That's a big thing. And I do think Starfield does a much better job of role-playing when it comes to your choices and your consequences within the dialogue compared to something like Skyrim. Not so much in the gameplay build variation department, but with how you actually complete quests, how you talk to people, you can lie, you can persuade people. That system, I think, is actually enjoyable, and I do think that was never that bad to begin with. And try and experiment, okay? A lot of the powers are pretty shit, and it's just so annoying. They could have made this so much better, you know, if you could just have an ability where you can pick up something from far away, you know, like use the force and then chuck these explosive barrels at the enemy, because there are, you know, explosive barrels, ice barrels, radioactive, corrosive barrels all over the place when you're fighting enemies, but you can't really, you know, pick it up and then chuck it at the enemy. But you can experiment with the gameplay. By using your powers, you can, you know, force the you can push the barrels towards the enemies and watch them explode. That, to me, adds much more fun to the gameplay, to the combat. You just have to be a little bit more experimental. And the final thing that I will say about Starfield that did disappoint me a lot is the fact that you can't really play as a good guy or a bad guy. Well, you can play as a good guy, but you certainly can't play as a bad guy. The bounty system is pretty goddamn broken, because you go and do these missions where you kill, you know, innocents or do piracy, but then the bounty that you get from it is going to be, you know, way more money than the money that you actually get from, you know, like scrapping a ship or selling it off or just doing a bunch of contracts, you know, as piracy or as a smuggler. It's very, very risky a lot of the time, and it never rewards that playstyle, which is very disappointing. But luckily now you can clear the bounty off in your own ship, which does make it better, because before it would be so annoying, you know, landing on a goddamn planet and finding out that you're just going to go straight to jail and there's no escape because it's occupied by the UC or something like that. So they've made it a little bit better, but still, that playstyle isn't that viable. So just enjoy the questing, because the side quests here are good, and yes, sometimes they do force you down a certain path, but there is wiggle room, and the quests that do actually have good choices at the end of them, they are satisfying, and that does give you the roleplay that you want. And although the world isn't as interesting, the story, the writing, there's still something special about this aesthetic, this kind of future NASA punk they went for. I think the design is very cool, and there are some interesting stories to be found, and, you know, some moral dilemmas to be made. I just wish it had a little bit more spice to it. I had a little bit more guts to say what it wants to say. You know, it feels very safe at times, but the ambience, the exploration when you go to these handcrafted locations, and, you know, just going up on a massive hill just to look at the site, just to soak it in, take pictures, that's where Starfield is, actually. You know, like No Man's Sky, people enjoyed it for kind of that zen-like experience, and if you play Starfield a different way, I think you can enjoy it as well. Starfield isn't bad, okay? Starfield is not bad compared to so many other AAA garbage that we get, like from Ubisoft, for example. I don't think Starfield's a bad game. It just was completely overblown by people's expectations, and the delivery of it wasn't what people expected it to be. It wasn't as Bethesda marketed it to be, which is their fault. And there's a lot wrong with Starfield. There's many things worth criticizing. Like I said, go watch my critique. But now, finally, there are things to love about Starfield. Now, with the gameplay tweaks and understanding just how massive this game is and how you have to play it a different way. This isn't supposed to be a A to B exploration type game, and then you find lots of things along the path. You know, that's what the biggest complaint is, because it's just randomly generated content in between this point and that point. You don't have to play it like that. You need to jump around. And although the space travel isn't that good because you're not exactly traveling through space and there's a lot of load screens, if you play it immersively, if you go to your ship and try and get into that roleplay and don't get sidetracked by doing this random AI generated shit and just do the actual quests instead, it can be enjoyable, I think, and I personally had fun with it. It feels like most people just want to forget that Starfield was even a thing and just like it was some kind of horrible nightmare and, you know, just move on with their lives. And fair enough, you know, if Starfield really did offend you and you couldn't find any enjoyment in it whatsoever, that's fine. I just have to say this because this is important for my own sanity as well as others, okay? I don't think Starfield is an amazing game. I don't think it's a great game, but I don't think it's a bad game, and actually it's a pretty fun game. But I uninstalled it after playing, I don't know, like 30 or 40 hours of it, not really giving it that much of a chance. I know 40 hours sounds like a lot, but in a game this big, you're not actually giving it that much of a chance because there's so much to do. And just like with Fallout 4, I don't actually think Fallout 4 is a great game, but lots of people love it, but I personally didn't love it because I had the expectations of having a Fallout RPG experience. That's why I didn't enjoy Fallout 4. But as I've grown as a person and as a content creator, I went back and I tried Fallout 4 with lots of mods. I tried it and played it differently, without comparing it to something else, without having expectations of it being a Fallout RPG. Just having it as a Fallout game and then playing it differently, my whole perspective changed. It's not actually a terrible game, it's just not a great Fallout game. And I feel that's the same thing with Starfield, okay? Starfield is not a bad game. In fact, it's a very good Bethesda game, and I think a lot of people were just tired of the Bethesda formula. That's why it got so much backlash. But that's not the only reason. I have to get this point out of the way. It's something that affected me a lot, and I think it's important that other people hear it, okay? And that is, I stopped playing Starfield simply because of the internet discourse, okay? Because of the discussion around Starfield. And usually I never care about what people say. Obviously, I'm doing YouTube videos. If I care about what people say, I wouldn't be doing this type of job, okay? The Stoic philosophy would argue, which I subscribe to, that it's not actually the opinion of others that I care about because they only have a limited perception of this, you know, thing that they're talking about. My point is, sadly, I got into the hype of Starfield. Usually I don't let that happen to me, but I was so excited for this game because I am a massive fan of sci-fi. I love Bethesda games. I love what they previously did, especially Fallout New Vegas, even though that wasn't exactly them, that was just published. But still, I loved Skyrim, I loved Fallout 3, and I got excited for Starfield. And when I played it, I was really enjoying it. Yes, there are lots of things I don't like about it, and I made a whole critique on Starfield, so you can go watch that. And yes, Starfield is worth playing in 2024, but you have to have different expectations. You have to understand that this game is different. Imagine the same exploration loop of Skyrim, but it is spread massively, but they like to pretend that there's lots of stuff to do on the planets, but actually there isn't. If you understand that, you play it differently, and you make it a more hardcore survival experience, I think you can actually have fun with this game. I did. And yeah, let me know what you think about Starfield in 2024, and I'll see you in the next video. Make sure that you do subscribe, leave a donation, and make sure that you come back to the videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I had a blast, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.